The law of attraction suggests that like attracts like, meaning our thoughts and feelings can attract similar experiences into our lives. And while not scientifically proven, this concept is explored in positive psychology, which studies, the impact of positive thinking, attitudes on life outcomes. Like you attract who you are, and this goes for relationships, business, and all other areas of life. I know. I'm curious on maybe your thoughts on the whole law of attraction, and maybe if you've had experience in it, if you have personal examples, or even if you maybe disagree or where you stand really.
Yeah, so like with this definition, I feel like I mostly agree with the actual definition, because the definition is really just talking about how like I think it really feeds into just like who you become, and who you become attracts different outcomes. So like, for example, an obvious one is like with relationships, like trying to get a good, like a good girlfriend or to get married, whatever, that kind of thing. If you want to attract a decent partner and not lie, like to genuinely attract one, because you can trick people, but taking away manipulation, say it's a genuine person who can see through that anyway. If you want to have a partner, let's just say, who is has like good characteristics, whatever those characteristics are that you want in the person, but definitely things like honesty, definitely things that are just faithfulness, things that are like just universally everybody wants those kinds of things in a relationship. You'll have to first be those things. Just for a simple first example. So like if you want to, people give all kinds of relationship advice. The best I've ever heard was you become the person you want to attract in like your characteristics, of course.
I feel like to kind of maybe erase any confusion, it's like you don't become a hockey player and attract a hockey player. No,
it's not so much what you do, it's who you are.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, but then again, if you wanted to, be a hockey player, for that example, you would just start to, like you would start to become the type of things that would be a hockey player. Like, for example, then you would, it would connect to going to the gym, it would connect to those kinds of things, physical things. Side, but also it would be a lot of like, I think almost everything in life is still more mindset than physical, or at least the harder part is the mindset than the physical part. The harder part, even going to the gym, the hardest part is the mental side of it, I think, because that's a big part of what your coaching is.
Yeah, I think that what happens a lot is that people go into it thinking the physical side is the important part. Like it starts with the desire for a physical change, and the people who see the biggest result are the people who come out saying, what an unbelievable difference my mindset is.
Yeah.
Right?
And that keeps you going.
Yeah. And they also do have this massive transformation, whether that be weight loss, and maybe my clients' examples, but if in this like hockey example, someone who's had their whole career, right? And at the end of their career, they're looking back on it and they're like, wow, like I'm such an improved person because of these experiences. You go through these hardships, maybe for a long time you thought, I need to, think of hockey player, I need to win the Stanley Cup. If I don't win the Stanley Cup, my whole career was a failure. My life is a failure. This is my life's work. And if I don't achieve that, I'm a failure. The people who probably end up not winning, long years later, they end up being the people who have the most wisdom, in that they didn't ever need to win. They understood why they were doing all of this. They understood, they became the person who could be at peace with all of that and could have actually the wisdom to learn that it was not about that end result. It was about this journey of like their whole life that they experienced, right?
Yeah, and it's the same in businesses too. Like with business leaders, the ones that are not obsessed about making money, but they're just obsessed with, their people and being, a good leader, and with actually like whatever their service or product is. Those are the people who make the best businesses as well. I can't think of the names, but I'm reading a book right now called Mindset, which I talked about in the past episode a little bit. And basically what she talks about in that book, she lists a bunch of different names, different business leaders, so like leaders of IBM, leaders of like a Procter and Gamble, and just all these different big businesses. Can't remember all their names exactly, but and then she just listed off guys who were all about themselves, all about their image, all about the pride of it, all about the money. And those are all people who have a fixed mindset, who are just trying to hold on to what they have. They don't want to lose what they have, so they're obsessive about money, obsessive about all this stuff, obsessed over power. And then versus other people who are more confident, they have these characteristics, they actually develop their character, and then they just led in a completely different way, which wasn't all about competitive, and it wasn't all about constant competition or image or looking a certain way or taking all the credit. It was about empowering others to do their best and to make a good product, and just to focus on the actual like purpose, and then the rest of it, like money, whatever the thing is that you want, money, or if it's a relationship, whatever it is. Well, and this is kind of coming back to my thing about this definition. In that way, I think the law of attraction works. becoming that person who actually is, value driven and like focused on their purpose and is living out kind of who they are. Of course, you're not going to be perfect, but like you're working on these things about yourself, these characteristics, and you start to live them out at least more often than not. Let's just say you're, and you're actually focused and you're trying to do that. Most people aren't even trying to do that. Yeah. So if you're just trying to do that, that's already massive, step forward. And so those kinds of people who are actually in that place will attract better circumstances. And she had lots of examples in her book about business leaders who did fantastic. She had tons of examples about athletes who have the same kinds of mindsets, like LeBron James or Michael Jordan, different people that had to talk a lot about mindset. And that's just a huge part of it. And it's because they become this person who, in a way, attracts these things to them. So I can understand why the law of attraction is a popular idea, but I can also see how it can be twisted. And I like, for example, a lot of people like that movie The Secret, which is about the law of attraction.
Oh, interesting.
It's a really popular.
I actually haven't.
Yeah, it's a really popular movie out there, and it's a documentary kind of style movie. I couldn't even get past the first 15, 20 minutes of it.
What was?
It was basically like a cult without religion, is how it almost felt like. It was so it's taking this idea and just going so far, and to the point where it just becomes like a lot of the, like it relates to a cult in a way of they sit in a prayer room and pray for everything to work out. They'll think their way into amazing things, you know, and you just spend all this time really thinking, and you may do some things too, but I watched it a while ago, so I can't remember the exact examples, but I do know I looked into this for a while, and I was starting to be hey, maybe this is really interesting. Maybe this is a thing that I'm supposed to be more a part of or more into. And then I realized that okay, you know what? This reminds me of kind of when I had been part of a cult.
Are you talking about visualization?
Yeah, but on steroids, right? All those things, but on steroids. So yeah. So those things, but not just for your own personal growth, but also because it's literally going to make you $1 million guaranteed. Oh, so 100% of the time.
It's the preaching of the people who meditate on visualizing their dream for an hour a day for a year become millionaires, and it's this,
and it'll always work, and there's an exact formula. It's kind of like the whole genie god thing, if you put it in the religious terms. It's almost like instead of God, it's the universe is your god, and now you're going to pray to it, and he's going to grant you your wishes as long as you're fervent enough in your prayers. I
see. Okay.
Whereas the real,
interesting.
Whereas what I think Jesus is actually talking about as far as a religious angle is he's talking about becoming a type of person. And then living in a certain way that will be like living in the kingdom here on earth, which then brings about a lot of, and because there are promises in the Bible that are also about, these health and wealth preachers in the Bible stuff, they do have, scriptures that they're using that are actual scriptures, but those scriptures are talking more about rewards based on just because you're living a better life. They're not guaranteed necessarily, but it's just you're far more likely to have good friends, good family, good loved ones if you become these things, which then makes your whole life better, because if you have loved ones, then when you fall down, they're there to help you get you back up. You're not alone, right? If you avoid certain, pitfalls, certain sins, it'll help you stay in a much better, way of life. So all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing with here, but minus the God element. It's about saying you can bypass all the actual hard work, which isn't just working on your business or working on stuff. It's working on yourself, which I think is actually the hardest work that you can do, because it's not quite as simple as just going on your computer and just going and pumping in whatever the hours of work. It's actually confronting yourself, being vulnerable, being open. It's actually about acknowledging when you're wrong.